entering God's frequency. Build a frequency so strong that reality has no choice but to give you what you want. Real talk. Have you ever met one of those people who just seem untouchable? Like they get hit with the same problems as everyone else, but somehow they always land on their feet. Bills come up, money appears, job issues, a better opportunity shows up, relationship drama. It just resolves itself. You might think these people are just lucky or have better circumstances, but that's not what's happening at all. Here's the real difference, and this is something most people would never figure out. These people have learned to make reality obey them instead of them obeying reality. They operate from what I call the God's frequency. I'm going to show you exactly how this works and how you can tap into this same energy. Because the truth of the matter is, once you understand this, you will never look at reality in the same lenses again. You'll realize you have been playing the game completely backwards. Let's get right into it. Point number 1. Reality is already obeying you, and you're just unconscious of it. Alright, so the first thing you gotta understand, whether you realize it or not, reality is already obeying you right now. You're just unconscious of the energy you're putting out that's creating your circumstances. Think about it like this, right? We exist in the field of infinite possibilities. Everything that could happen is already out there in what we call the quantum field. But what we're seeing with our ego, which contains our 5 senses. What are our 5 senses? We have like taste, touch, our smell, see, and hear. These are our 5 senses, all right? That's less than 1% of what actually exists in the quantum field. And I'm not gaslighting you. Science backs this up. They call it the unified field. So you're basically living in this massive ocean of potential, but you're only experiencing a tiny drop of it based on your frequency. Your consciousness is like a radio dial, and whatever station you're tuned into, that's what you experience as your reality. Now, here's where most people get it twisted. They look at their circumstances, their bank account, their relationships, their problems, and they use that to determine how they feel inside. But man, that's like looking at the reflection in the mirror and trying to change the reflection instead of changing yourself. Always remember this line, okay? Your external reality is just a mirror of your internal state. Your external reality is just a mirror of your internal state. So when you're reacting to circumstances, you're literally creating more of those same circumstances. It's this feedback loop that keeps people stuck in their patterns forever. Now, the people who seem to have that magic touch have figured out how to break this loop. So this is how we typically 99% of people think, right? Like we go, I see lack, I feel lack. Essentially, we create more lack. But these people who seem to have a magic touch, this is how they go about their day anyway, right? So they experience the same thing as you in the 3D reality sometimes, the physical reality. I see lack, but I feel abundant anyway. I see lack, but I choose to feel abundance anyway. And that shift in frequency changes everything. And the second point I want to make is that your frequency is either a shield or a magnet. Now, what do I mean by this? This is something that's going to change how you think about energy work. Your frequency, your state of consciousness, your vibe, whatever you want to call it, it's either working as an invisibility cloak that protects you from lower vibrational stuff, or it's working as a magnet that attracts more of what you don't want. You get to choose which one it is every single moment. See, everything in the universe is vibrating at different frequency. That's not woo-woo talk. It's just physics, right? Everything is made of atoms, and atoms are constantly vibrating. The rate of that vibration is what we call frequency. So when you're operating at a higher frequency, when you're in states of things like, I'm talking about joy, abundance, confidence. Essentially, you're in a state of knowing your power. The lower frequency stuff literally cannot stick to you. It's like oil and water. They don't mix well together. Perhaps that's what Bruce Lee meant by "be water, my friend." Let me know in the comments. But when you're operating at a lower frequency, fear, lack, worry, and the worst of all these, and I hate this so much, victim mentality, you become a magnet for more experience that match that energy. It's not a punishment, it's just physics. I've seen this played out so many times. You know those people who always seem to have drama in their lives? They're not unlucky, they're just operating at a frequency of drama. And you know those people who always seem to have opportunities falling into their lap? They're operating at the frequency of opportunity. The crazy part is, you can shift this instantly. Like right now, right? You could decide to operate from a different frequency and start attracting different experiences. But most people don't because they're addicted to the current frequency, even if it's creating problems for them. Look, I gotta be real with you for a second here because I don't want this to sound like I got it all figured out. I'm still working through this stuff myself, you know? Like a few months back, I was in this weird space where I'm trying to film these videos, right? And I kept using AI to help with my content because I thought it would make me sound more professional. But what ended up happening is my voice became more and more fake. Like, I lost my authenticity trying to sound perfect. And man, the audience, you, which is you, could smell it through the screen. My content wasn't hitting the same way. I wasn't getting the engagement I wanted. And I'm sitting here frustrated like, why isn't this freaking working? Then I realized what was happening. I was operating from my ego, trying to please everyone, trying to sound like what I thought a successful coach should sound like. I was letting the external pressure of needing to succeed dictate my internal state. So I had to make a choice, right? Keep trying to be this perfect version that wasn't really me, or get back to my authentic frequency, even if it meant being vulnerable and imperfect. What I did was I started recording voice notes, just talking naturally, no script, no AI, just me working through my thoughts out loud. And you know what happened? That's when things started shifting for me. When I started trying to control how I came across and just focus on being real, my frequency changed. Now, people in the online space always try to come off as if they have got it all figured out. Like, come on now. That just didn't sit right with me. I got goals I'm working towards too, but now I approach it from a different energy. Instead of going, I need this to work or I'm screwed, it's, I'm already on a path. I just gotta trust the process. And that shift in frequency, that's when opportunities started showing up differently. That's when I started attracting different types of conversations, different types of people into my reality. The reason why I'm telling you this is because I don't want you thinking this is some magic pill where you just flip a switch and everything's perfect. It's a practice, man. Some days I nailed it. Some days I catch myself slipping back into my old patterns. But the awareness is everything. Moving on. And I wish this board was a little more stable because, you know, it's kind of shaky if I'm being honest right now. All right, we're moving on to point number 3 now. And this is super important, so lock in. Now, we've all fallen victim to this, okay? Including myself, and including any manifestation coach out there, okay? They're just human beings. They're not gods. But anyway, point number 3, stop making matter more important than mind. All right, this next point is where we get into the real game changer stuff. Most people have it completely backwards when it comes to the relationship between mind and matter. They think matter, their physical circumstances, their bank account, their job situation is more real than and more important than their mental state. But that's like thinking the shadow is more real than the person casting it. That should give you a different perspective. Here's what's actually happening. We exist on 3 different planes of reality: spiritual plane, mental plane, and physical plane, which is, you can also conceptualize it as body, mind, and soul, if that's easy to read. The spiritual plane is the highest form of consciousness, that's source energy, infinite intelligence, whatever you want to call it. The mental plane is where our thoughts, beliefs, and emotion exist. And the physical plane is matter, the stuff we can touch and see, right? Now, Most people are stuck operating primarily from the physical plane, which is actually the lowest form of consciousness. Crazy, right? It's like being God, but only paying attention to the densest, most limited aspect of creation. But here's the key. The physical plane is created by, guessed it, the mental plane, which is connected to the spiritual plane. All these three are interconnected. They're not really one more important than one another, but your mind literally precedes matter. Your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs are creating your physical reality, not the other way around. So get that straight in your head, first of all. When you really get this, you realize that trying to change your circumstances without changing the consciousness is like trying to change a reflection without changing yourself. It's backwards. The people who operate from that invisibility frequency, or the God's frequency I called earlier, they've learned to prioritize the mental and spiritual plane over their physical circumstances. They don't let their bank account determine their abundance mindset. They don't let the current situation determine the confidence level. They decide internally by going within how they want to feel. And then they let reality catch up to match that frequency. Simple. Point number 4. Now, when we're doing business, when we're dealing with people, we always often think that, fuck this person, fuck that person, fuck this competitor. They're like my obstacle and stuff like that. I hate to break it to you, but I gotta tell you, your ego is your only real opponent. Now, here's where it gets interesting, right? You've got one main opponent when it comes to operating in this invisible frequency, and it's not what most people think. It's not your circumstances. It's not other people. It's not even lack of money or opportunities. Your only real opponent is your ego self. See, your ego got programmed by the material world, which is in the physical plane from the day you were born. It's learned to take the external world seriously because that's all it knew. I mean, I was actually literally talking about it the other day with my friend, right? Since you were born out of your mom's womb, your 5 senses almost never got shut down. So that's why I went to this deprivation tank like last year, but just food for thought, right? Anyway, so the ego is always going to try to make you react to circumstances instead of creating from your higher consciousness. It's like this, right? Imagine you're playing a video game, right? I don't know what video game you play, but I grew up playing RuneScape. I still play it sometimes now, but your ego is like the character in the game, but you're not the character. You're the player controlling the character. The problem is, most people forget they are the player and start thinking they are the character. Does that make sense? So when the character faces challenges in the game, they think that's who they really are. They forget they have the power to change the character, to level up, to unlock new abilities. Your higher self, your true consciousness, that's the player. It's connected to infinite intelligence, infinite creativity, infinite abundance. It's not limited by the game rules because it exists beyond the game. When you start operating from your higher self instead of your ego, you realize you have the same creative power as source consciousness because you are the fractal of source consciousness. You're not separate from it, you're a part of it. But the ego doesn't want you to know this because then it loses control. So it keeps you focused on limitations and problems, on all the reasons why you can't have what you want. The key takeaway here is learning to recognize when you're operating from ego versus when you're operating from your higher self. How do we distinguish that? Well, when you're operating from ego, here are the traits, right? You will feel contracted, reactive, while some other ones fearful, as opposed to operating from your higher self, which is who you really are. You should feel expansive, right? You're always expanding your consciousness. You should also feel creative because we're all creators. And more importantly, abundant. That was pretty much it for point number 4. We're now moving on to point number 5. And you need to keep going to watch this video. I mean, aside from me trying to promote myself, this video, the totality of everything is what makes it work, okay? If you were to skip this now, it's like, you train all your life in karate and right before the black belt promotion, you give up. So you shouldn't you should keep going. And point number 5, it sounds so fucking simple, but we often forget. So this is a kind of more of a reminder more than like teaching you, but surrender the how, control the what. All right, this last point is something we're always still working on mastering ourselves. But it's crucial for maintaining that invisible frequency. You're not responsible for figuring out how your desires are going to manifest. Your job is not caring about the how, so forget about that. Your job is caring about the what you want, and then align your frequency with already having it. See, everything that could ever exist already exists in the quantum field, according to spiritual science and science. All possibilities are already there, right? And you didn't create them. Infinite intelligence did. So when you try to figure out the how with your limited human perspective, you're actually limiting the ways your desires can come to you. It's like that saying, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. My bad. Your logical mind can only see a few possible paths, but infinite intelligence can see infinite paths. So your job is to decide what you want, right? And then align your frequency with having it. And then surrender the how. When you get intuitive hits to take action, you move. But you don't force, you don't chase, you don't try to make it happen through willpower alone. This is how you stay in that invisible frequency. You don't sacrifice your state trying to force circumstances to change. Your state is always priority number 1. I will say that again, so this really ingrains into your mind. Your state is always priority number 1. Now, you might think, oh, but what if? Okay, let me tell you right now, there's no what if. You are no exceptions. You protect that frequency like your life depends on it. Because in a way, it does. When you're operating from this level, you become like those people who just seem to have everything worked out. Opportunities shows up out of nowhere. Money comes from unexpected sources. Problem resolves itself. It's not magic. It's just physics. You're operating at a frequency that's aligned with solution instead of problems, with abundance instead of lack, with possibilities instead of limitations. All right, that was not the last point, actually. I lied. This is the last point. And this one, man, it sounds so tough. Point number 6, make the unstill still. Now, here's something most people don't realize about maintaining this invisible frequency. Your present stillness, your ability to stay centered and unshakable, is affected by unresolved stuff from your past. Think about it like this. Memory don't just disappear, right? They exist as energy within you. And if a memory has enough emotional intensity attached to it, it enters your subconscious mind. And here's the thing, your subconscious doesn't understand time. So to your subconscious, that past event is happening right now. So you might have had some crazy argument with someone months ago, or some financial stress, or some situation that really rattled you. And even though it's over, the emotional energy of that experience is still playing in the background of your consciousness like a song on repeat. So how can you maintain that invisible frequency when there's chaos playing in the background of your mind? You can't. That's why certain people seem to always have drama in their lives, or always have money problems, or always have relationship issues. It's because those frequencies are still active in their subconscious mind. So what you gotta do is go back and make the unstill still. Now, how do you do that? I want you to take those memories that created chaos in your system and use your imagination to recreate them in a way that reflects harmony and peace. How do I do that? I'm going to give you an example. For example, if you had that crazy argument with your psychotic companion, I'm just kidding. All right, but for real, I want you to visualize it ending with you both hugging it out and expressing gratitude for each other. If you had financial stress, visualize it resolving in the most beautiful way possible. This is not just a coping mechanism, and no, you're not trying to change what happened. You're changing the energetic charge around what happened so it stops creating interference in your current frequency. When you do this work, you condition your subconscious to reflect stillness instead of chaos. And when your subconscious is conditioned for stillness, that's what gets reflected back to you in your external reality. Look, I know some of this might sound crazy if you're hearing it for the first time, but I'm telling you, when you really understand that you are not a victim of circumstances, that's when you're actually the creative force behind your circumstances. Everything changes. You stop being reactive and start being creative. You stop obeying reality and make reality obey you. Remember, you exist on multiple planes of consciousness. Most people are stuck in the physical plane, which is the lowest form of consciousness. But when you start operating from your higher self, from that source's consciousness within you, you realize you have the same creative power as the divine because you are connected to the divine. Your frequency is either an invisibility cloak that protects you from lower vibrational experiences, or it's a magnet that attracts more of what you don't want. You get to choose that with your energy every single day. The people who seem to have that magic touch, they just learn to prioritize their internal state over the external circumstances. They have learned to make the mind more important than matter, and they have learned to operate from that higher self instead of the ego. And one more thing, if you're an entrepreneur yourself and want to go deeper with this frequency work and learn the specific techniques used to maintain that unshakable internal state, I'm putting together a whole system around aligning your mind, body, and spirit for manifestation. Book a call with me in the description below and we'll figure it out. It's all about creating that invisible frequency we talked about today, but a deeper dive. It's like this video is like an iPhone 17, which is good enough for most people, but sometimes for some of you, you might just need that iPhone 17 Pro Max. Man, I love this shameless plug. That was smooth, ain't it? But for real, stop waiting for your circumstances to change before you feel different. Feel different first and watch how fast reality starts bending to match that new frequency. That's the real game right there. Your external world is just a reflection of your internal world. Change your internal and the external has no choice but to follow. See you again in the next one.